Okay, Trish, let's just wait for the other guys and then we're ready to go.
Okay, so in this particular instance, I'm going first. So yeah, I'll wait for the other guys then.
Okay. Hello. These guys, I think, got stuck. Let's just wait for them and then you go on, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, we're going backstage so that if they come up there, oh, they're here. Okay.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
Hello. So our topic today will be discussing on how we are developing HR business leaders and how business is being influenced. So we're going to have presentation from our panelists, Mrs. Trish Jasi and Emmanuel Vada, who will be leading us through a conversation. So we'll start with Ms. Trish. Please take us through on what your perception is on how we can develop African business leaders.
Okay, thank you very much. And indeed, yes, it's a morning or it's an afternoon, depending wherever we are. But all the same, it's a great opportunity to be a presenter on this platform, really. So I'm just going to share a PowerPoint presentation and then share my thoughts and insights around that. And then, yeah, we can have the discussion that following after. So we might not necessarily ask questions in between the presentation unless necessary. But after the presentation, then we can have the conversation. So I will share my PowerPoint presentation, which I prepared for you.
Okay, please. Please go ahead.
Sure, I'm just looking for it. I'm having a bit of a challenge here. Okay, let me just go backstage because I need help to share it. Can't seem to find it.
Okay, maybe give up 5 minutes.
Okay, so as I'm trying to share my screen and having struggled to do so, I will start by introducing who I am. So I'm an HR practitioner with about 12 years experience in human resources, recently appointed as a commissioner. And I've been in HR for the longest part in consulting, but I've also moved to the private practice. And yeah, I've had that experience. So maybe, I don't know, how do I do this? I'm trying to look for but I can't. Okay, let me just go backstage. Yeah, I'm trying to do that under presenting, but it's not picking the presentation at all. Okay, let me just go backstage for a bit and get some help. Is that okay?
From East London, but today I'm projecting from Queenstown where I work. My profile says that I wear many hats. So today I'll be talking from the heart of being a leadership catalyst. I facilitate quite a number of seminars, conferences, and trainings on leadership and on HRD. My topic is curbing unethical leadership, some suggestions. So while I see that other speakers talk about ethical leadership, I'm more into how to curb unethical leadership.
Charles, Dr. Malan?
To evaluate the state of ethical leadership in Africa and suggest measures to curb unethical leadership is the overarching topic. I start by defining ethics, which says that when you look for the word ethics on Google, this is 2014. I don't know what it is now. By 2014, there was 1,800 results, or is it 1.8 million? I don't know. But basically, ethics refers to any moral principles that guide individuals in terms of what is right or wrong. Remember, an organization or a government anywhere in the world does not exist on its own. There must be individuals who work there who drive those organizations. So they need to be guided by ethical standards. In Africa at the moment, just about 2 years ago, 4 main countries were on top in terms of ethics. These are known as very clean countries. Botswana was on top. This is actually following in the same order. Number 2 is Seychelles, a small island, and Cape Verde up there in North Africa, and Rwanda. If you look at all those 3, there's only one Anglophone country represented. Seychelles, Francophone; Cape Verde, Lusophone; Rwanda, Francophone. I don't know what is happening on Anglophone countries, because Botswana is the only one that is highly ethical. I've just put this slide today, I don't put it before, in terms of ethical leadership. The demonstration of normatively appropriate conduct through personal actions and interpersonal relations, and the promotion of such conduct to followers. I'm not wanting to talk about the two-way communication. I will leave it at the promotion of such conduct to followers. Quite an old definition, but it comes in handy for presentation today. An ethical leadership is basically leadership practices that will not produce outcomes that address the goal of an organization or even a country. These are called unethical leadership. How are leaders unethical? There is a plethora of literature on this, but I've just chosen a few by Naidu. One is putting their ego and their interest first. It's very common in most organizations and in most countries to find leaders who, the moment they occupy a seat or an office, they forget that they're there to do a task. Their egos come first. In fact, managerial ego is all over. Peter Drucker says, what is so-called management is actually preventing people from doing their job. This includes people in senior government positions, including presidents. They are so egoistic the moment they get into power. They refuse opinions that differ from theirs. They are leaders who you don't suggest, you don't question, you don't correct. What they say goes. If they say jump, you ask how high. Those type of leaders are very common in the continent. They refuse or discourage opportunities to promote leadership in others. Dr. John Maxwell says a leader is one who promotes fellow leaders. So you don't just have followers, but you ensure that you have fellow leaders. You'll see that these insecure and leaders do not encourage that. They refuse responsibility and accountability. We find this every so often. At the moment, there's a university here that in trouble for a professor accepting someone into a postgrad program, but this person did not have matric or did not have an undergraduate qualification. What is happening is that this guy is refusing to take responsibility and accountability, saying, I was just helping a student. Those are unethical leaders. They abuse power for personal gains. I'll come to this topic later on when we talk about extortion and also kleptocracy. We'll talk about this later on. So common and ethical leadership practices in Africa is bribe. It goes by various names. In South Africa, where I am, it is called brown envelope. If you want something done very quickly, you talk about a brown envelope. Through a brown envelope, you can get a driver's license, you can get qualification easily. Let me not talk much about that, but you can get services rendered to you very easily. You can get a tender, anything you want. In Mombasa or Kenya, where I come from originally, it is called chai.
Okay,
A singer called Wainaina, Eric Wainaina once sang a song,
you can hear me just
said, Kenya,
or it might be need to refresh your page.
Everything you want, you eat chai. In Tanzania, they call it hongo. Another unethical leadership practice is favoritism, extortion. Extortion is favors that are granted regarding to sexual agreement. for selfish reason. So you give sex, you get favors. Theft. Recently at a WhatsApp group, it was discussed that those who engage in fraud or fraudulent activities, at whatever level they are, even presidents, they are thieves. There's no other name to describe them. Sexual harassment is not the same as sexuality. This is when you harass somebody because you want them to give in to you sexually. The use of political influence is self-explanatory in the sense that even children of politicians in high office or presidents get favor just by saying that I'm the son of so-and-so or daughter of so-and-so. Then I said I'll talk about kleptocracy. Election fraud, we see it. Currently, there's a country that's about to go to elections in East Africa, and the winner is predicted. Let me not get killed by saying how, but you all know. And the last one is victimization. You know, you get victimized just by speaking the truth. You get victimized by standing your ground. Those are some of the unethical leadership practices that are there in the continent at the moment. Then what citizens need, a leadership guru here called Dr. John Tibane, he's a medical doctor, but he's very much into leadership. Once asked a group of 800 teachers, what do you want us to assist you with so that you can do your work effectively?
Okay, hello.
And they said one thing, leadership. Leadership is very broad, but as this leadership, as Antonio River says,
hello everyone, how are you?
the ship, the fish rose from the head down. It's not very easy to define leadership, but it's just the ability to align people behind a vision, to make them follow you. It's influencing people to move towards a common outcome, to appeal to followers, to appeal to their values, to their needs. That's what leadership is all about. Ethical leadership. What are some of the solutions? Melo et al. Talk about bringing about preventative measures. I've got a book here that has got a picture of those measures. Have a risk assessment, monitor and evaluation projects. How are they executed? They in line in terms of quality, financial, time, transparency and accountability in government and in the public service. President and senior leaders need to be held accountable.
I think we'll go ladies first.
A strong approach on all pillars of ethical leadership.
We'll go ladies first.
Trust among trust people. It is said that all words that Monica wants to hear are the following. I don't trust you.
The floor is yours.
Then good governance, ethics, ethical standards, and lastly, a zero tolerance approach, whereby a sacrosanct value is broken, you get fired immediately. You don't get thrown into an ambassadorial position somewhere in a small country, yet you committed crime. In fact, in some places, people resign on their own just by being unethical. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. But I want to share with you a slide here that not all is ethical as leadership proclaims them. Okay? Mahatma Gandhi was not as ethical as people thought. Martin Luther, okay? Mahatma Gandhi encouraged the caste system in India. He was not the type of father and husband that he portrayed was. So sometimes image is not congruent with identity. Don't look at these leaders who stand on podiums and lie to you. Go deeper and look at their masks, their shadows. You'll see that they are highly unethical. This makes us very difficult to trust leaders in public position, other than people like Thomas Sankara, the late Che Guevara, the late Amilcar Cabral. We could trust those ones because, as Steve Biko, they fought for the rights of grassroots people, and they were very genuine. But modern day leaders, we have washed our hands. On that note,
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Masha, for
Susan,
that very insightful presentation. If I could just take a moment to ask a question or two. So for an HR professional who's listening to you today, who is wondering, so I am in a situation where I am between a rock and a hard place. I have been subjected to some of these unethical leadership practices that you had mentioned earlier. How can they, what exactly can they do? What tips can you share from your experience that would help them rise up and speak up in the face of unethical leadership?
Thank you so much. I always tell people, when you employ in an organization, you're not employed by Juguna or by Andisa or Jonathan. You are employed by organization, and there are protocols and policies that should be followed. Demand to have those ones. Download them into your laptop. Read them from page to page. That is your Bible. I've been in such situations before, and I've put a lot of people into trouble, including professors. They bow down to me because I always resort to policies. At one time, the professor refused to give me my bursary because I was doing my second doctorate, and he said to me, "We cannot give you a bursary because you already have a doctorate." Now, the bursary is part of the university program to anybody who is studying. I asked him, which policy guide your decision? He didn't take it. I reported him. He received one email, and on December 11th last year, I was given my bursary money in full. By the way, I was in Mombasa at that time in an Airbnb, so I enjoyed my time for 2 weeks. I used a policy of HR to say that as an employee of this institution, I'm entitled to scholarship and bursary when I'm studying. This professor, using his ego and his own decisions, lost big time. To this day, we are great friends. Please, people, whenever you are employed somebody, somewhere, you are employed not by somebody, but by the organization. Don't fear victimization. You'll be a hero at the end. People have been taken down, including professors, by small people, including junior lecturers, because these professors have flaunted policies. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And for someone who's also wondering, how can I start developing my own ethical leadership? Because I have been brought up in a system that clearly does not naturally demonstrate the right thing to do. So as a leader myself, what 2 things would you tell someone to do today if they wanted to begin to build on their ethical leadership, to develop?
Thank you very much. Basically, once you put in a leadership position, depending on the size of the organization, whatever, allow yourself to be educated. Please don't go into a position when you don't know the rules and protocols of the organization, when you don't even know HR practices. There's a plethora of literature out there on HR practices. The world is littered with consultants. How about calling Anderson and ask him to assist you in this journey of yours? But the problem is that we've got leaders who don't want to listen. They go there, and what governs the organization is not protocols, but their own stupid super egos, which in most cases lands them into trouble. I'm in a very beautiful country called South Africa, whereby not even the president is above the law. We've taken people to court here, and we've won because we use the constitution. So leaders who want to rule through narcissistic ends and are not refusing to learn, are not allowing themselves to learn, are in trouble. As a leader, go and read, go and learn, go to school. You don't have to do an MBA. You can do a short course. You can do a workshop for 3 hours. Slowly get a mentor. Please don't discourage yourself. Rufa, my mentor who stays in Belgium, has a book titled "Gone." The good bad days are over for people who are not good leaders. He is right, and he asks, "How do you want to be remembered? What do you want people to talk about you in the dining room tables or in buses or in taxis when they're traveling?" Please keep that in mind. If you want people to talk good about you, go and be educated.
Thank you so much.
Over to you, Susan.
I like what you've said there, that you take personal responsibility. So it's not a question of sitting back and waiting and trying to figure out. It is pushing through and actually doing the right thing every single time. And are you able to give us an example of a company you have seen that has ethical leadership practices in Africa that you would recommend or you would put up as a showcase for us to emulate? Thank you so much, Dr. Masha, for sharing those insights with us. Indeed, Africa is rising, and ethical leadership is within our power. It is something we can do by implementing little things every single day. Like you said, it's about honesty, it's about transparency, it's about being able to be held up to a standard which you have worked to develop so that everybody is on the same page and is progressing forward. So I want to turn our conversation to Rosalind. Rosalind, I hope you can hear us. Okay, as we wait for Rosalind to just catch up with us, I see Dr. Christine Mushibwe has raised their hand. Dr. Christine, if you could just type, if you have a question or you have a comment, if you could type it in the question and answer section, that will really help us so that I can direct the question accordingly.
On the live screen.
Rosalind, can you hear us? Just checking with you again. If you could unmute and just speak to us, that would be good. Okay, it seems Rosalind is having a bit of a challenge communicating with us. Dr. Masha, I'll just ask us one more question even as we try and figure out what's happening on her end. And that's the question of the different kinds of ethical leadership that we can think about in terms of whether we are leading from a place of knowing or whether we are leading from a place of actually doing because it is something that's practical, or the idea that ethics is not just about one thing, it's also about our morals, it's also about our thinking, and it's also about our logic. Are you able to just touch a little bit about that, about those three different elements of ethics?
I think all of them can be combined, but there are also some circumstances that sometimes make us bend over a bit. And these circumstances usually come back to haunt us. But ethics is logic. It's just sheer logic. Doing the right thing even when nobody is watching you. That's ethics. But I think the continent is so much plagued with inequality and poverty that sometimes you find even the most ethical people trying to bend over, albeit in a sort of disguised way. You could be so ethical, but again could be pointed at you, and you are told, "We'll kill you if you don't do X, Y, Z." And you find sometimes people bending over. But I can give you an example of a young woman at the moment who is driving a huge university in the admissions office. And she keeps telling me how she has been promised from your top of the range Range Rovers to a 7-day holiday in Mauritius by parents who are super rich, as long as she fakes the results of their kids so the kids can get their degrees and move overseas. This lady has told them, over my dead body, let me remain with what I have, but I'm not going to do that. We want such people with such good standing, whereby you put your foot down and you say, I am not going to do this because I am guided by X, Y, Z. Within reason and with some bit of flexibility, but not something that is going to put the organization down, not something that is also going to put the institution into some kind of disrepute. So logic, moral standing, those two are things that ethical leaders should consider. Again, If you have not received training in ethics, welcome ideas from others, because that's why they tell you, you're going wrong here. This is missing. The moment you refuse opinions of others, believe you me, you are bound to make sometimes extraordinary mistakes, and that is to your own peril. Thank you.
Thank you so much for addressing that so clearly. It begs the question then, and I know this is probably controversial. So if everyone is doing the wrong thing, why should I bother doing the right thing? What is the case for ethical leadership in your view and in your experience?
Again, as I said earlier, it's the issue of how do you want to be remembered? What do you want people to talk about you in the buses that they take, in their taxis, which in Kenya you call matatu, at dinner tables, over a drink at a sports club? How do you want people to remember you during your farewell, whether you are retiring or resigning at your 50th birthday? These are things that you should always worry about. Do you want people to run to you at the mall with happiness that you are an ethical leader, or do you want them to repel against you and point fingers at you? It's entirely up to you. As long as you're doing the right thing, I think, not that you're buying face or anything, but you're doing the right thing in the right organization at the right space, that's okay. There is a Mo Ibrahim Foundation that gives dollars, a lot of dollars, to presidents in the continent who, during their reign, showed good governance. Sometimes that prize can go for years not being given to any. Why? Because upon review, you realize that this guy actually, when he was in power, was so unethical, and XYZ has been discovered. Again, how do you want to be remembered? Post your position in any leadership position. Come on, just do the right thing.
Thank you that you've actually brought that up in terms of what do you want to be remembered for. That speaks to a legacy. And of course, you would appreciate that legacy doesn't start when you turn 50. Legacy begins when you're much younger. So the question then is, how can a young person, someone as young as university level or even earlier, how can a young person begin to develop their ethical leadership? Or on the other side, we who are leaders in our societies, how can we grow ethical leaders from a young age?
Well, there are many platforms. At the university where I went to University of Fort Hare, where I did my doctorate. That university is, for years, been known as Democracy University. That's the same university where Charles Njonjo went to, Yusuf Lule of Uganda, Robert Mugabe, and quite a number of leaders in Africa coming. They went to that university, and they had a lot of student, I would say, student organizations, which to this day are still prevalent. I love the present student organizations, not the student unions, but organizations like Enactors, Junior Chamber International, and the rest. Within the university, within schools, Columba leadership, where at an early age, you are taught leadership practices, servant leadership, transformational leadership, ethical leadership. Surely, if you decide not to join those or to learn from those, it's because maybe you already know it or you are refusing to learn. Leadership is a very wide phenomenon. In Malaysia, there's a university of leadership, but they don't teach leadership. They teach leadership through engineering, how engineering can take over the world and be world leaders. You get my point? So, if you want to be in, join the club. If you don't want to be in and we try to recruit you, it's totally up to you. I run a youth leadership movement called YLEG, YLEC stands for Youth Leadership and Esteem Camp. The first part of that movement is usually events and seminar based, whereby I first take youth out of their self-esteem hole. Remember, statistics show that a lot of our young people have not discovered their self-esteem and their self potential. They have not unlocked their potential, and that is 97%. 85%, according to Dr. Joe Rubino, have low self-esteem. 87%, according to Dr. Joe Larry Liangi, engage in negative self-talk. 98% just follow trends. So I tell youth, you are in a negative zone. Let's work this out and take you out of there. Look at what happened to us, what went wrong, and what we can do. The second part, we make them come back and claim their potential and then teach them to be future leaders. Such programs should be encouraged. From a young age, I've got 2 sons. You can't, by the way, take them out of their vision. One is 22, the other one is only 12. They'll tell you where to stop. Because from a young age, I've told them the world is an oyster. Capitalize on it. I get so many people daily, I listen to them engaging in negative self-talk, and I say, oh, these are the people who are killing the continent. But my duty and your duty and our duty is to shape these young leaders, to make them believe that they can be contributors to the continent's democracy and
indeed, it is within our power to shape the lives of the young men and women and young people who are around us, and from a very early age it is possible. Now there's a comment that's been put in the chat that says that ethical leadership is a reflection of the organization, or who is at the head of the organization. What do you have to say to that statement? Would you agree with it or would you disagree with it?
Can you please repeat the statement?
Ethical leadership is a reflection of the prevailing values within the organization.
Okay. As I say,
go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Values are there, but do people live to them? In fact, there's an author who wrote a book about all those values that are put on big walls are just nonsensical. They're just there for them to look kosher, but people don't necessarily practice them. One of my slides says we should hold leaders accountable. You'll be unpopular in the organization, but you stand your ground. There's a professor who was recruited into a leadership position in a university in Australia. He's South African. When he got there, he noticed that one of the values of that university was to make students feel comfortable in a comfortable environment and to make them feel part of the community. This professor would hang out with students on the grass around tea time, talk to them and the rest. Then he got an email being told, you are too close to students, you shouldn't be. He asked them to convene a meeting and he took out the brochure of the university from his pocket and asked them to define that value, which says we should make students be part of the community so they feel that they belong. He asked them, is it a value in this organization? It is. So why are you taking me up by doing exactly what you say? They all looked aside and did not say anything. Let us live values. Hold tight to them. I always give an example of a dog and a bone. If you have a dog, not these small chihuahuas or sausage dogs, I use dog, Rottweiler, Pitbull, Bulbul, big dogs. Your friendship with that dog is there as long as you give it its bone and you remove your hand. You dare go back to the dog and try to retrieve the bone. It will bite you, even if you're the owner of the dog. Those are the values that you stick to. You bite people by trying to come between you and your values. No matter what it takes, you stand your ground.
So to the question that, to what you have just said right now, is that we should actually live our values. What
Yes.
advice would you give to a HR professional, for example, who's thinking about the value of teamwork? How then can they translate that value from the theory about what teamwork looks like into action?
It's a pity that you can't see me at the moment, but I would have flagged something that I was flagging to my mentee yesterday, who was struggling with her PhD proposal. And I told her the only thing that will separate you from you and getting the proposal ready is ACTION. Why is this HR proposal, HR practitioner struggling? Yet it is there in the strategic plan that the organization should go for teamwork and team building sessions, or should embrace teamwork in order to move forward. I was part of a project with about 6 people, and there was one who did not want to hear opinions of others. So during a meeting one day, I just raised it and said, guys, we need teamwork here, but I think we need to have a project charter which talks about do's and don'ts, and we should all adhere to that. He asked me, what is it? I said, it's a document which guides us on how we're going to relate to one another as a team. Believe you me, from that day onwards, it sorted out everything, because it is signed by everybody that I'll play team, I will listen to other people, I'll attend meetings, I will be early for meetings. So devise means to ensure that you capitalize on the organizational documents and strategies that will force people to play team. You can play team in the organization. If you don't like me after 4:30, if you meet me at the bus station, you don't have to greet me. But in the organization, we are a team, whether you like me or not, and we must work together.
So it sounds like we have to be a bit militant in terms of seeing the results. Because with the example, that you've given just now, we must be one in the office. Whether or not that happens after 5 o'clock when we leave is another thing. But while we are here and now, we agree to disagree, and we move and we unite towards a common goal. Is that what I hear you saying?
Exactly, but not militant but strategic. Not militant but strategic. I might not like you, but because a document has to be done, we have to do some work, we do it. Please don't ask me about my son or my dog or my car. Let's just do the work here. Don't worry about me. If you meet me there at a splendid hotel and you're having a Tusker, don't greet me. It doesn't matter. But at work, we have to work together, my dear. And if you don't, I send an email to our manager, I report you, and I copy you. Until you get things right. This is not your father's house. This is an organization.
Okay, so there's a comment here that supports what you had said a little bit earlier, that living values within the organization is expressed through the behaviors that have been defined and measured. So someone is agreeing with you.
Thank you so much. Yes. Susan, let me tell you something today. And let me also tell most listeners today. Okay? The biggest reasons why most organizations fail is because people don't speak out against evil. And as Martin Luther King said, evil prevails when good men sit down and do nothing. And you know why they don't speak out? One of the reasons is because most of us are employed on contracts. So your line manager is dangling the contract on you and saying, you only have 3 years here. If you oppose my ideas or whatever, I will not renew it. Another reason is because some people have been employed illegally. They didn't meet the requirements to be there. So they are afraid of speaking. But you need to speak out against ills of the organization in a very tactical and nice manner. We call it being assertive. These skills are missing amongst most of us because you think, what will people say about me? Blah, blah, blah. That is what is killing a lot of organizations. There's so much apathy because of what will people say about me. But it has never happened to me. I've been in this country for a long time. I've worked with professors and the rest. Even before I was a doctor, I raised issues. I've taken down giants. One of them actually ended up being repatriated back to England because he was trying to be unethical here and trying to bully people. A whole professor, I reported him and I won the case because I used policies. And I will always use them and I'll always win.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that experience and showing us that it is possible and it can be done. So I'm about to go in a slightly different direction where there's someone who's disagreeing with what you had said a bit earlier. So they said Dr. Masha is right on a number of points. However, how ethical is he declaring one university as the best in the whole of Africa? So Dr. Masha, what do you say to that? So someone
Well,
says you cannot declare one university the best in the whole of Africa.
it's proven. Go on Google. The best university in the continent for almost the last 10 years is University of Cape Town, number 145 internationally. In South Africa at the moment is University of Cape Town, Pretoria, Wits, Stellenbosch, and UKZN. In so many ways, not because my son got there, but things are happening there in terms of research, customer service, productivity, journals, and all those things. If anyone can give me a list otherwise, I can Google here also top 100 schools in Africa. There are quite a number of schools that are there in Kenya, by the way, more than schools in South Africa. So this is not something that I'm sucking. It is something that is there, and I'm speaking from an academic point of view. Let me repeat, University of Cape Town is the best university in Africa. Prove me wrong. My email address is there. We'll share. And if I'm wrong, I'll buy you 3 bottles of dry gin.
Okay, that's quite an offer you're putting out there. I don't know if anyone in the audience is up to the challenge. So if there's anyone in the audience who wants to take up the Dr. Masha's challenge, please let us know so that we can look out for it. And if you have any other questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat so that we can address them here as we continue with this interesting discussion. So as we look towards closing, let me just ask this. Do you believe as Africa we can make that shift from an ethical leadership to ethical leadership? And if yes, what is it that you're seeing that tells you that it is within our power as Africans to make this transition?
Thank you so much. First of all, let me start by saying that last December on my way to Nairobi, I used Ethiopian Airlines. So I first landed in Addis Ababa, spent some time and then went. And I read a very interesting book en route to Nairobi for that 7-hour trip. It is by Clomelo Biko, the son of the former vice chancellor of UCT. It's called Reimagining Africa. Oh my God, what a lovely book. Africa can be reimagined to be what it wasn't before. We've got pockets of examples that are doing very well. Ethiopia at the moment is coming okay. I saw it with my own eyes. Rwanda is coming very okay. Tanzania is coming okay with Magufuli at the helm. There's a few things over there as well in terms of democracy in those countries, and people are questioning whether those countries are democratic or not. But I think ethics are playing a huge part in those countries. Botswana just next door here, or I've never seen a country where people are so protective of its own than Botswana. But we have to play our own individual part. What is your role? There's a video I saw from a Nigerian guy who is in Australia, pointing at a whole section which has been taken over by Indians. It was a flat ground. It's got the best houses, the best malls and everything. These are Indian immigrants. They came in there, got their papers right, developed themselves, because Indians, Greeks, Jews, and they always stick together. Pakistanis, they boost one another. They come into a country with only a suitcase, and within no time, they have established businesses. They are all over because those people are united. Blacks, let's be united. Let's fight for this country. If Susan sends me an email, I need to respond to it. If Susan asks for a favor, if I can do it, let me do it. Vusi Tembekwayo says the problem with African people is that there are 3 blacks. The only black, the best black and the first black. Everybody is rushing to be the only black to have a PhD in his village. The best black with a PhD in his village. The first black with a PhD in his village, and the rest don't matter. No, man. The world doesn't belong to you only. Lift others. Let's be ethical. Let's build the continent. Let's read about that struggling kid and see how we can support that person. Let's see how we can support Martin Wanjohi in this huge, magnificent endeavor that he has done. The first in the continent. Let's write about it. Let's talk about it. Let's put this thing on our WhatsApp statuses. Let's talk to people. Let's just say, why Martin? Oh, he'll get the pride and I will not. No, man. Let's be ethical. Let's lift others. Let's do our jobs. Report to work 8:30. Leave work 4:30. Switch off that light in your office. Turn on the tap in the bathroom. Turn it off when you go away. Simple things like that is what can build this continent. I am a strong believer of Pan-Africanism. I say we can build this country, this continent. We can build it. Look at Rwanda today. Glowing example of the continent. Clean, neat, highly developed. Everybody's rushing there. Did you know that it takes somebody less than 56 minutes to open a bank account and a business in Rwanda? Less than 56 minutes. Because they believe highly in building that country. You land there, within an hour, you've opened a business, you've got a business account, you've got premises. How can the rest of Africa learn about that? It can be done. Let's vote the right people into power. Don't give your vote because of 1 kilogram of posho. Give your vote because you want to give to somebody who is going to give you the best results. Let's interview these people before they go there. Let's make them sign memoranda of agreements that when I get into that position, I'm going to do this. If I don't, fire me. How do we fire you? We take you out in the next elections. We demonstrate against you until we pass a vote of no confidence against you. The Constitution will say that you can leave office even before the 5 times have ended. But what have we done? We have allowed people to lead us because they are from the same clan as us, or they bought Minyama Choma at a certain club over there. Let's not do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that detailed explanation. And on the question of corporate governance, where do we start? So Ken says that we need to start by addressing corporate governance within our organizations. And Dr. Kota says that the organizations need to apply the REDCA governance architecture, where REDCA is risk management, ethical leadership culture, workplace democracy and compliance, auditing and reporting. Are there companies that you have seen successfully turn around the governance within their companies? And what did they do that stood out for you that we can emulate?
I can talk of 1 or 2 here in the Eastern Cape where I stay, but may I just ask you to, is Dr. Kota on the panel at the moment? Or
so he's typing in the chat.
Is he listening to us?
He is listening to us, yes.
He is the most influential person in this because he does a lot of such training in corporate governance and such issues. So I agree with him, and if you can give him the platform to speak, I'll be happy, because my experience is very narrow compared to him, because day in, day out, he's involved in such activities. Is it okay to allow him to?
So he might not be able to speak. He might be able to type for us in the chat, and we're able to view and read it. And
okay,
he can, of course, share his experience with us from that angle. So what I can do is ask you on your end, if we leave this session today and forget everything else, what would you want us to take away from this session? What would you want us to go away remembering that Dr. Masha charged us to do the following? so that we can hit the ground running as soon as tomorrow to begin to look at the ethics within our companies?
Let's build Africa in an ethical manner. Think very deeply and start worrying about how you want to be remembered. Think very deeply about what you want people to say about you in the taxi, in the restaurants, in the offices. Do you want your fellow workers or juniors to be happy when they see your blue Volvo parked in the car park? Or do you want them to suddenly start signing sick leaves because they have seen your blue Volvo? Please, all of you who are in this panel today, please go and download something. It's a video called South. It's called It's So Simple. Okay, go to YouTube and download a clip titled It's So Simple. It's about Southwest Airlines in America. When you walk in town wearing either a golf shirt or anything written Southwest Airlines, everybody asks you, how did you get there? How can I get there? It is so ethical that everybody wants to work there. The CEO knows all the employees, from the most superior to the person who is controlling the aeroplane to land. There are many, but he knows all of them. Everything is celebrated. How can we make our companies in the continent, organizations, parastatals, government departments, and municipalities be the same? Whereby if you're absent for 2 days, the morale is so low because people love seeing you in their company. Let's practice ethical leadership. Let's build other leaders. My parting shot to you is, let's rebuild Africa ethically by worrying how we want to be remembered. Full stop. Thank you. Asante sana. Hasta la vista. Shukran. Kwaheri. Bye.
You haven't represented the whole of Africa, Dr. Masha. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay, natotera sana for Zambia. Shukran for Islam. Inkos Kakulu for South Africa. Diabonga for Zulu. Inshallah for Arabic. Shalom for Jewish. Yeah.
Fantastic. You've done very well. In fact, I think you've done way better than many of us would have done with trying to say goodbye in multiple languages or from across Africa. I just want to take one last opportunity. If there's anyone who still has a question, please don't allow us to leave without answering it. Dr. Masha is here, and as you can tell, he's very passionate about ethical leaders. He believes that it's possible to turn around Africa because he has seen it done, because he knows there are young people who are coming up today who push back and they are not willing to accept the status quo. So if you still have any questions, I want to give a few more minutes before we close out the session. If you still have a question, please put it in the chat and we can respond to it. Now I'm going to just go a shift a little bit. When we started, Dr. Masha, you told us that you're a man who wears many hats. And I'm just curious, what led you down the path of ethics and leadership? Because you could have chosen any other area, but you chose this one. How did you get here and why ethics, given how complex the whole subject is?
Thank you so much. I think it's because I'm a fighter for social justice by nature. One day I was traveling from Mombasa to Dar es Salaam by road using the Lunga Lunga border post. When I got to the border post, there was a couple, a Tanzanian couple, quite elderly, coming from Mombasa going to Tanzania. And then at the border post, crossing from the Kenyan border post, they want to be stamped out. The customs or immigration officer asked them, why did you overstay? They say, no, if you check next page, we went and we got our visa renewed for 7 days. And we are traveling within the 7 days period. We actually have 4 more days. Then the immigration officer was asking them, who stamped it for you? They said an immigration officer at the immigration office in Mombasa. Then the immigration officer was telling them, no. You stand aside. We need to talk about this. Next, it was me. I said, I'm not going anywhere until we finish with that couple. What I said, you must finish with that couple first. We're in the same bus. They must go with me. How do you expect them to know who stamped for them, yet the stamp is illegitimate? He was trying to make noise. I made a phone call to my cousin, who was the chief immigration officer of Mombasa, or Coast Province at that time. And I put him on speaker. And he was told, I will fire you. Now, this is a couple I don't know, but I saw an ethical leadership taking place here. So I stand my ground. It doesn't matter. My wife is well placed at a certain university. I fight with her every day about how universities and ethical leadership practices. She can sulk for 10 days. It doesn't matter. We need to fight this. By the way, I think I'm taking this from my father, who was in the police force at one time as a superintendent officer. So he taught us to be ethical and to stand for excellence amongst others and for the rights of others. When I'm presenting at seminars or conferences, some people become so uncomfortable, they don't come back after tea. It's up to them. I speak my mind. Thank you.
Wow, that is quite something. And indeed, you do speak your mind. And we have appreciated being able to pick your mind and to hear what you have to share. And for you showing us that indeed we can make a change in Africa and for Africa. Now, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone who's listening in, today has been a very interesting session. Technology has given us a bit of challenges, and we have had to pivot a little bit in the way we were progressing. Roslyn was not able to join us. She had a bit of technical challenge. Paul as well also had a bit of technical challenge, though I know Paul is actually able to hear us, but he's not able to speak. I don't know, Paul, if you'd like to type in the chat some parting shots that you'd like us to take away on this session, because I know you prepared long and hard to come and speak about walking the talk. So if you could just drop in the chat something that you'd like us to take away, or if you could speak up.
No, Susan, I think I'd overcome the challenge. I was actually waiting to do my part.
Awesome.
But anyway, maybe I think because of time, maybe we can't. Maybe just to add on to what Dr. Marsha has said in terms of ethical leadership, I think one thing that I might want to bring home is leaders must walk the talk and not talk the talk. Here we're saying leaders must be ambassadors of the values and the ethics that they put in place. And also, like what Dr. Marsha has said, that there's serious need for leaders to be able to be mentoring their juniors, their subordinates, so that they can move up the ladder. There's serious need for leaders to trust their subordinates, to hear them out, and to understand that at every level of the organization, there is talent that is inbuilt. Someone might be a tea boy preparing tea at the workplace, but the whole main concept says that person is a leader elsewhere. If you see him during the weekend at the bottle store drinking, he's the one who is sending others to buy beer, and they listen to him. If you look at their families, they are bringing up their own families and having their children go to universities. They're actually planning and budgeting to run their families very well. And they've got children who are high there in the society. So ethical leadership is about really being in the forefront, not just talking the talk. Talking the talk is putting up the ethics and values there and preaching about them. But as a leader, without demonstrating to your subordinates how important those values and morals are. So maybe in short, this is what I could say in support of my colleague who who presented on our behalf, and I'm sure my presentation is there for circulation afterwards. Thank you.
I should have provided you with my comments and what I have.
So you've mentioned something which I'd like you to just touch on a little bit because it's equally important.
With the structure of the paper.
Okay.
The question paper might confuse students big time.
Dr. Masha, if you could please mute yourself. Thank you very much.
Okay.
You have muted yourself. Okay.
So there's something you talked about, and those are the skills of ethical leadership. I think those bear touching upon because skills are things we can develop.
Okay.
I said, and somewhere the marks are not allocated. The one that says fill in the blank spaces, that kind of an arrangement. Are you opening the question paper now? Are you trying to do that? Yes. It's always better. I will show you.
Exam.
There is no allocation of marks for those kind of things. Now you do not know whether question 1 is out of 30, out of 10, out of 50. You do not know.
Dr. Masha?
The allocation of marks helps students to organize themselves how we should provide answers.
Yes.
Dr. Masha?
Without that, a student can be confused.
Okay.
Dr. Masha?
When you're doing a paper for moderation, you also supply a memorandum.
Yes.
To check the consistency in the question paper and the memorandum.
Dr. Masha, if you could kindly mute yourself.
And he has not been responding since.
Oh yes, I see what you're meaning. Yes. Okay. Yes, I will talk to. I get what you're meaning.
Because my fear is that.
Yes. Let me talk to. This one has got 15, but the rest do not have.
The rest doesn't show.
And you are the moderator. Okay.
And it will border on my integrity to say how are these people moderated with all of these kind of things.
Let me sort it out with Mr. Now.
Oh.
Dendy.
Okay.
Because yesterday we had a meeting, but Mr. Fico was not there.
Okay.
And then we'll get it to you with the
memo
marks.
And work out the structure of the question paper.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Let me continue with this and finish with it. Okay.
No, thank you.
Have a seat.
No, thank you, my brother. I'm hungry. I feel like just felt that.
Okay. Thank you.
I didn't eat.
No, don't worry. Don't worry. Okay.
No,
Dr. Masha?
I'm back now. Thank you.
Okay, if you could kindly mute yourself because we could still hear you speaking on the background. I wanted to give Paul an opportunity to just walk us through a few of the ethical skills that we can work to develop, because I believe that's one of the things you said, that we need to put it into practice immediately. So Paul, if you could just mention the leadership skills that we need to develop so that we are walking the talk. Paul, are you still there?
Oh, sorry, I not unmuted. Yes, there are 5 pillars that I think we need to, as leaders, to think about. One of them has to do with respecting others. Even though we occupy high positions, but there's serious need for us to respect and empower our own subordinates. Where credit is due, we make sure that we give it. We listen to our subordinates. We show that empathy to be in their shoes and understand them from their standpoint. And number 2, we as leaders, we need to be able to serve others, contributing to the greater good of our colleagues and our subordinates. And this will include the element of mentoring, which Dr. Masha raised, where we want to develop and empower our own subordinates and make sure that they also rise along the way and also they enjoy within the organization. Another element is that of showing justice in the way we treat our own subordinates. We want to be very fair if we are going to be ethical leaders to our own subordinates. We want to treat them equally. When we are administering the code, let it be equal across all the subordinates to everyone. And there's no need for us to show favor of one subordinate or over the other. And most importantly, we want to be honest as leaders. It is very, very difficult most of the time for a leader to tell the truth or to be open and represent reality. But an ethical leader will always be honest. He will never promise something then do something that is different. So in terms of ethical leadership, these are some of the skills that we want. And lastly, you need to build community. You want to influence others to reach a common goal. You want to rally your subordinates so that they all look at the end result of where you want to go as an institution or as an organization, and they all rally behind. When things go wrong, they all take collective responsibility to say we have failed. When things go good, everyone should celebrate. So as a leader, you need to be building that community to make sure that we always move with our team and we are a role model. So these are some of the skills that I think will be very critical in terms of ethical leadership. Susan.
Thank you so much for that. Indeed, those are very important. I especially like the one of building community, because it's only through community that we can see lasting change. No one can make any change in this world by themselves. So because we are speaking to leaders from across Africa, from you to them, what is the way forward for leaders as far as ethical leadership is concerned?
I'm sure as leaders, we want to increase our impact as leaders. As a leader, we just want to do more than just what makes our own behavior more ethical. But we want to be leaders who are up there and our subordinates are ready to look up to us. And also, we want to think about how we can influence our colleagues with the norms that we set in the decision-making environment that we create. So as leaders, we are at the forefront of coming up with the principles, the ethics, the morals of the organization. So we want to be able to influence our colleagues, our subordinates, so that they also look at those norms and values the same way that myself as a leader, I would look at them. So this would mean that we really want to be up there in terms of living the values that we have set. You know what? One funny thing is, which you must know, is people follow the behavior of others, particularly those who are in position of power and prestige. Whatever they see in us is what they believe to be right, and is what they believe is supposed to be emulated. So we as leaders, we must be very careful about how we handle ourselves, because those that are down there, when they look at us and they see us following a particular direction, and we follow it, making sure that we are saying this is the right direction, people's subordinates tend to follow that. So we have got an influence as leaders that we have, and I urge all African leaders to really look at themselves, how they hold themselves, how they handle themselves, and really understand that it is influencing the multitude of followers that are looking up to them. And lastly, you really need to create more value by shaping the environment in which others will make decisions. We want to make sure that we trust our subordinates, that they can make decisions. And when we delegate to them, we want to give them that latitude to demonstrate their skills. We don't want to be policemen to make sure that every move that they do, we must sanction it. Then in that way, there's no delegation. But we want to delegate and empower and not micromanage our subordinates. So that kind of leadership will also develop other leadership downstream. And you find that as we move along, the organization will have quite a number of leaders, ethical leaders, at each level of the organization. And as a parting shot, I think as leaders in Africa, we need to understand that ethical leadership is the gradient that will only drive the African agenda. And as HR leaders, it is our duty to drive ethical leadership in our own organizations. We need to take charge. This Pan-African conference, HR conference, is actually the starting point to allow us to share all those ideas as HR practitioners, to allow our own voice to be heard. Yes, we can listen to the voice of our intellectual ancestors, the gurus in HR and leadership. But when will our own voice be heard? This is the beginning of our voice to be heard. Whatever we're going to get from this conference, we should really come up with our own African way of looking at ethical leadership. That way we walk the talk and not talk the talk.
Wow, just wow. And I know, Paul, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself, but I know you are. In fact, I can give you a moment before we all leave to just tell us who you are and how you have come upon this wealth of wisdom that you have just shared with us in these few minutes.
No, my name is Paul Nyausaru. I'm a HR manager with our local examinations board here in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe School Examinations Council. I also sit on the Institute of People Management of Zimbabwe Council as the Vice President in charge of membership and education. And I've been there for quite some while, for quite a while. I am also part of the organizing committee of this Pan-African HRE conference. And I'm happy to see that it's really a resounding success with the deliberations that have been taking place since morning. And I'm also an avid writer. I've written in our local daily papers on HR issues, and I'm just about to launch a book on HR, which is bringing together the wealth of articles that I've been doing over the years.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much, Dr. Masha. You have enriched us this afternoon, anyone who's listening to the recording of this session. You have enriched us with some insights. You have encouraged us to go forth and be ethical leaders. You have shared with us how we can make that happen. And now the ball remains in our court to begin to put into action the things that you have shared with us. For everyone who has attended this session, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for engaging. And thank you for sticking with us even as we resolved the earlier technological challenges we experienced. Indeed, we are living in a world where three things define who we are now. We must always be learning, we must always be growing, and we must always be adapting. If you'd like to reach out and connect with our speakers this afternoon or even with each other, please go ahead and do that. I know each of us is available and can be found on LinkedIn or online or in our respective chapters and member organizations that we are a part of. Thank you all so much. And with that, I want to bid you a good evening, if it is evening in your part of the world, or good afternoon or good morning, or best of all, good day. Be ethical, live ethical, walk the talk. You can do it. Thank you very, very much, everyone, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you so much, so much, so much. Thank you. I've enjoyed this session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you, Doc, for the insight.
Thank you. Let's keep in touch, eh?
That's
By
true.
all means, let's
We'll
keep
do
in
so.
touch. We can meet in the lobby, meet in the lounge. We can connect and we can discuss. Dr. Charles, thank you very much. A nomadic delegate that you are. And we appreciate that you are picking insights from every session that you're attending. So everyone, have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.